I was asked to do a character profile about Murtagh Fitzgibbons Fraser from Outlander, so let's talk about him. As always, this will have spoilers for the books and the TV show, so if you are looking to avoid those, please do keep on scrolling. So I recorded this last night for over an hour, and TikTok deleted the audio, so this is round 2 of me making this video. But I'm taking it in stride because Murtagh is one of my favorite characters from the books and the show. Since we will be seeing a young Murtagh on our screens for Blood of My Blood, I wanted to do a little more of a deep dive into his background and showcase him as young Murtagh, and he will be played by the actor Rory Alexander. So as we know, Murtagh is Jaime's godfather and his very close companion in the books and in the show. In Dragonfly and Amber, we actually find out that he had sworn an oath to Jaime's mother, Ellen, a week after Jaime was born, that he would follow Jaime and guard his back for as long as he lived. Right before Outlander, the books and the show, officially kicks off and Claire travels back through the stones, Murtagh had actually rejoined Dougal's party in order to be there when Jaime arrived back from France. And this was, again, a way in which he is making good on his promise to keep Jaime safe. For those who might forget or not realize, Dougal had harmed Jaime. He's not a trusted man, and Murtagh knows this. And Jaime and Murtagh are very adamant to Claire in the books that they always have a witness present with them and how important that is. And so Murtagh's motivations for being with Dougal at this point in the story are mainly because Jaime is going to be with Dougal. When Claire first meets Murtagh, she describes him in the books as being weasel-faced, ferret-faced, rat-faced, a swarthy little man. Nothing very positive, and obviously we know that over the course of the books and the show their relationship dynamic does change and improve, but she doesn't have the most flattering characteristics to describe him. She also often says that he's one of those men that looks surprised to find out that women have voices and use them. So it's easy to infer that he didn't really know what to make of Claire in the early days of their acquaintance. During Jaime and Claire's wedding, Jaime tells Claire that he believes Murtagh to be his father, Brian's second cousin. Later on, when they're at Lallybroch and Jenny and Jaime are talking with Claire, she says that Murtagh is Jaime's father's second cousin's nephew. Big families in Scotland. Murtagh himself tells Claire at one point that he is related to Mrs. Fitzgibbons by marriage. She was married to Murtagh's uncle. Now in the books we learn that when Murtagh was a young man around the time of Blood of My Blood, he had quite the crush on Ellen Mackenzie. He went to one of their big gatherings at Castle Leoch and he killed a boar in a very heroic way. So impressively, that Colum actually gifted him the tusks from that boar, which the show and the books reveal he later turned into the bracelets that Ellen Mackenzie was gifted by an admirer and Claire ends up wearing. So he is one of the many, many admirers of Ellen Mackenzie's from her youth prior to her eloping with Brian Fraser. Claire also determines pretty early on that Murtagh seems a little jaded about women. Obviously, we can only assume that that's because of everything that happens with Ellen Mackenzie. But Jaime tells Claire early on in their relationship that much of his knowledge of women and what they like or dislike is coming from Murtagh, and Claire's very confused by a lot of his assumptions. I would say that book Murtagh is a very gruff, quieter, more pragmatic man. A man of few words, but with very deep loyalty, especially to Jaime. That loyalty and understanding and love for Jaime is unwavering in both mediums. But on screen, I would argue that Duncan LaCroix's portrayal of Murtagh, it retains the quiet strength of the character, but I think the show expands a lot more on his emotional depth and also his humor. We get to see a lot more of his warmth and humor because the show swaps Murtagh in for other sub-characters from the books. So he's in a lot more scenes with Jaime and Claire, and that gives him a lot more opportunity to showcase his sense of humor and also play off of the characters that we're meant to become invested in, and that makes him a character that we do become far more invested in. But obviously we know there's a divergence from the books on the show, In the books, Murtagh dies at Culloden, battling alongside Jaime, sacrificing himself for Jaime, and at the beginning of Voyager, the third book, Jaime awakens on the battlefield and has this feeling that he has lost Murtagh. And 20 years later, when Claire returns, he tells her about finding him on the battlefield and how he was nearly dead but had enough strength to tell him not to worry, it doesn't hurt a bit to die, which is the line that we get at the end of season 5 when Murtagh leaves us on screen. Because in the show, Murtagh survives Culloden. He is with Jaime when he goes to Ardsmuir prison. He, again, is his right-hand man through that whole experience. They are separated when Jaime becomes an indentured servant with Lord John Grey at the end of season 3, and they are reunited in season 4 in America. And a lot of his storyline is definitely pulled directly from source material of this is a thread we could yank on and it makes sense, which I think they did a great job of, but mainly it's a testament to Duncan LaCroix's acting because he was a fan favorite, and so they chose to keep him on for longer than the books advised. In season 4, when Jaime and Claire and young Ian are at Willem's Creek and young Ian needs to find a blacksmith, we end up figuring out what happened to Murtagh. He ended up inheriting the blacksmith trade and business from the man who had essentially bought him, and because that man taught him a trade, he was able to sustain himself and also use the funds of that to go towards the regulator cause, which we find out he is basically heading at this point in America. And because of the rewritten storyline, we also get to see Murtagh reunite with an older adult young Ian, which we wouldn't have seen in the books. He gets to learn about Bree and Claire coming back. He also gets to meet William and learn about Jaime being the father of William. He gets to reconnect with Fergus. He gets to meet Roger and Bree. He also gets to meet their first son, Jeremiah. And of course, we get more moments with him and Claire. Claire in the books, in the first Outlander book, does admit that the two of them make a very strong pair when they are traveling across the countryside looking for Jaime. And the show does a really good job of showing us that and not telling us that. And that's why when the two of them are reconnected, it had such an emotional reaction, and it was a fan favorite, I think, for a lot of people. It also means that when we do say goodbye to him in season 5, there's a lot more weight behind that loss. Obviously, it would have been emotional to lose him during Culloden as well, but I think this being a little more focused on just losing Murtagh, whereas Culloden was a loss of many, many characters, this kind of, it landed for me well emotionally, and it wasn't a book change that I disliked. I actually did like it. But the book change I didn't like was his forbidden romance with Jocasta Cameron, who obviously is Ellen Mackenzie's sister, Jaime's aunt. And I think that while they thought it would be a probable romance between the two of them, I didn't buy into it. I didn't love it that much. I'll be curious if they try and tee that up in Blood of My Blood so that it makes sense on the main show that it happened. But as far as we know as book readers, his eyes were always on Ellen, and so him and Jocasta reconnecting in a friendly capacity to me makes sense. But I almost feel like in the show, having him fall in love with her is just a way of making Jocasta second fiddle to Ellen again. I'm excited to see how the family dynamics play out on screen for Blood of My Blood, and this storyline with Murtagh is another way that they can expand upon that in a different way than the book medium allows. But Jaime and Murtagh's relationship is one of my favorites. Even in death, Jaime calls upon him often preparing for battles or when he needs guidance. And whether it's print or screen, the character of Murtagh is ultimately the same. He's willing to die to protect Jaime, just like he swore to do when he was born, and that loyalty and sacrifice, they define him as a man and as a character, and what make him such a fun character on the show and one of my favorites from the story.